Welcome to the Money Insights Podcast, where high-income earners come to learn wealth-building strategies that will take them from high income to high net worth. With your hosts, financial and wealth-building experts, Christian Allen and Rod Zabriskie.
Welcome into today's episode of the Money Insights Podcast. I am Rod Zabriskie, and you were surprised to hear me speaking first. I'm here with my co-host, Christian Allen. How you doing, Christian?
That was brilliant, Rod. We should definitely trade places based on that intro. I'm good. Thank you. I'm excited for today because I get to sit back and chill and just go with the flow. So this is fun change of pace for me.
Yeah. Now, before we get away from that, though, you're always really good to ask if I have any cool updates. So I got to flip it on you. How's the Allen household doing?
Okay, actually pretty good. So we have a bunch of stuff. You came to Kate's play, so she's she's playing asparagus and cats, and that was super fun. So that's going on this week. And then we finally broke ground, actually dug out our house. So this is hallelujah. It's been a year in the making before we finally got to the place where we're actually digging. So it's fun. We've got a foundation in there. And I had one other thing and I lost it. But anyway, those are a couple of big things going on in my life.
Okay. Well, feel free to surprise me later if you can do it. Okay.
It's a deal.
Okay.
I will.
All right. So for this episode, a few weeks ago, we did a What Would Rod Do episode. And I'm always game for any of that kind of stuff. And I thought, you know what? We hear too much from Rod. We need to hear more from Christian.
Yeah, that's what people are thinking.
Especially in this context of really digging deep into not just the philosophy, but the actual, what are you doing? How do you make decisions? How do you do what you do? Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to do it. So this should be fun. I actually feel like I'm more in my element when I just get to go off the cuff than I am when I'm trying to focus and make sure that I'm, really well organized. So this is a good change of pace for me. We've gotten the pod down where we have a pretty good rhythm. So this could be an adventure too. Let's just see how this thing goes.
Well, so far it's feeling like an adventure to me. So this is good. This is good. And everybody should know that I did not prep Christian ahead of time. He has no idea what I'm going to ask him. So it truly is going to be
no preparation. Yep. I'm totally off the cuff here. In fact, it's so vague that I don't even know if we're going to talk we're going to talk life, family, business, money. We'll just see where it goes.
Yep. We will see how it goes. And I have a few different categories, so maybe we'll bounce around a little bit, but we'll see how it goes. So
we're going to do Jeopardy style, so I can be this section, 200.
Could.
We probably would have needed to prep on that a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
But anyway, seems fun. So you just take us wherever we're going.
All right. Well, we'll ease into it. We're going to start with just alternative investing, different kind of scenarios here. So
I like alternative.
Let's start with this one. So let's say a friend offers you a partnership in a small business, but they need you to front the money. Let's say it's $250,000. What would you do before committing?
Wow, that's a lot, Rod. You're coming out really swinging. Okay, well, we'll see. Let's kind of take a step back here. I think the first step is you've got to understand the business model, right? You've got to understand what kind of business it is and make sure that it's one that's viable and interesting for you, right?
Okay.
And then you've got to make sure you clearly understand what both parties are bringing to the table. So if they're coming to you and saying, hey, you're the capital, well, then the question is, what does the non-capital side do, right? And I think that there has to be some sort of balance between those two. Anytime you go into, I say that there has to be balance in the sense that it has to be balance or in conjunction with the equity. That's the word I'm trying to get to. So if you're doing a 75-25 split or a 50, it has to make sense according to what people are bringing to the table. And I think that's the big part. So as an example, if somebody had an expertise in something and they were really good at it, let's say they wanted to expand their business, they knew how to do it. They just needed the capital, but they were bringing the know-how. That would be a deal that I could be interested in, right? I actually just buying into a multi-CPA practice. It's not a friend that brought it to me. I found it through some due diligence online, but I've still had to go through kind of these exact same steps. So that's the first thing. And then you've got to make sure you formalize stuff with friends. I know this is hard. It's a really difficult thing to do because, you have a good relationship and you always just assume things will work out and be good. I can just tell you from experience, that's not always how it goes, right? Sometimes when money gets involved, things can change, whether it's purposeful greed or whether it's just desperation. Everybody has different moments that they kind of have to dig deep. And sometimes people, when they dig deep, like their true colors come out, or maybe I shouldn't say the true colors, maybe just the worst of the colors can come out when you're dealing with money. So in my mind, it's absolutely critical to make sure that you have things in writing, even when you're dealing with people that you are close with and respect. What did I miss?
I mean, so far so good. If there's anything else, I'm interested to hear it. But I'm
okay. We'll call it at that. Those are some of the thoughts that come to my mind. There's probably, like, if I was doing this, I would probably make like an actual checklist, and I would probably go and say like, okay, and can I just tell you through experience that we've learned that buying a business isn't just like a no big deal thing. It's like a lot of work, and there's a lot of pieces, a lot of elements to it. So the other thing I would do is I would go in with a checklist of items that I would just treat it like any other business venture that I'm looking at. And maybe even with like some extra scrutiny if you're thinking, hey, I'm going to get in business with a close friend in this example.
Okay, I like it, man. I gave you a good one right up front, and you delivered. Way to go. Okay,
right, so you're too nice, Rod.
No, I mean, but I really feel like that was a really well organized, like boom, boom, boom.
Thanks.
Hit
all right,
hard.
We got it. All right, we're going. Okay. We're just getting warmed up though.
Okay. Yeah. Next one I'm going to ask is, you're looking at investing in either a mobile home park or a self-storage facility. Mm-hmm. And all things are pretty well equal. Similar cash flow, the projections, the just comfort level on the operators, just all that kind of thing. Which would you choose between those two categories, and why?
Okay, so can I ask a couple follow-up questions?
Sure.
Before maybe you can give me some input on this. So in this scenario, how much effort am I as the investor putting into this? Is that different based on the So I guess what I'm saying is this just like a syndicator who's doing it all and I'm just a totally passive investor? Or am I like owning the park or owning the self-storage units?
Well, it's going to be equal either way. So let's say it's a syndicator.
Okay.
So you're passive, you're a limited partner either way.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you're just saying, regardless of which direction I'm taking, it's going to be the same for both. If all things are equal.
Yep.
Oh man, this is tough. I tend to lean toward self-storage more out of, I feel like there would be, I'm saying that and I'm questioning myself like mid-sentence, because I was going to say there's maybe a little less ongoing, like just hands-on effort, but you're saying that's out the date. Rod, I don't know. To be totally honest with you, I have not invested in either one of these categories on my own. Mm-hmm. I did have a period of time where I was really interested in mobile home parks, but I was a little late to the party. And so I ended up not doing anything in that. And I think because of over the last few years, I've been hoarding cash to put into my house. I've had less money into these kind of things. So I have to just take a step back. I'm going to turn it on you, Rod. I don't know the right answer to this. Do you have a better answer?
Well, it's not right or wrong. I think really what it comes down to is just preference. Like when you look at them.
Well, you're saying the cash flow's equal, the effort's equal. With everything's equal, then I guess I don't care which one I get.
Okay. Well, that's fair.
I mean, I don't think that really either one of them is going to appreciate in value significantly more than the other. Like mobile home parks,
those are the kinds of things that I
fly up in you know what I mean? So if it was like a community of, if you were talking about like a mobile home park, and I say this, and mobile home parks can crush it. Like, so this is just a difficult thing. I think a lot of it has to do with who's running the show, what kind of track record they have of success. So if I'm on that side of it, I've got to know that I'm working with somebody that's like knows how to deliver in that space. And I would be more focused on the person that I'm investing with than I am the actual asset class, just because I don't feel like I have a nuanced enough perspective on these two asset classes to give like a really strong delineation as to why someone would do one or the other.
Okay.
So we're going with the person.
Okay. Perfect. Fair. That's good. Okay, one more question in these, again, specifically alternative investing space.
Okay.
Oil and gas investments promise great returns, but for a lot of people, there are a lot of unknowns as it relates to that. So given that, how would you decide whether to invest in oil and gas or not?
Okay, so a couple of thoughts here. First off, when I first started in this business, oil and gas investing was tremendously different than it is today. What I mean by that is that it was very much just a guessing game. My understanding today is that people are much, much better at hitting oil, right? They're better at creating consistency in like the numbers and in terms of like, if I'm digging, how many times out of 10 can I actually hit oil? Now they're just so much better at that than they used to be. So I think that oil and gas is a better place to invest in today in terms of the actual, like, will it produce a return or will it not? Now, the depths of the return, there's probably more risk in it earlier. That means there's obviously going to be higher upside. But your question is, how do I determine whether to do it? Well, first, I've got to determine whether my risk profile fits the risk profile of that investment. So if we're talking Christian, I'm absolutely fitting in the profile. I'm a high income earner. I'm relatively aggressive as an investor. I have money that I'm not necessarily looking as much for cash flow. So like for various reasons, I could find good reason. And of course, I love the tax benefits. So if you're asking me, does it make sense to invest in oil and gas with a portion of your money? I absolutely think oil and gas is a viable place to put money. Again, this isn't like your 40% of your money. It's like 10% of your money in my mind. Now, everybody has their own cup of tea. We've met people that are like all in on oil and gas and have actually done really well with it. For me, it makes sense as a small portion just based on the risk profile, relatively aggressive. But again, I think that your opportunity and success rate in that space is a lot better today than it was, say, 15 years ago.
Awesome. Okay. I lied. I'm actually going to throw one more in on the alternative before we go, because I just have to.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I guess I'll let it
So
go.
let's say that you find a private fund that's offering a 12% annual return, and has consistently done that for a long time. But they require you locking up your money for 10 years. Would you invest in something like that? And if so, how much?
No, and none.
Okay.
Right. That's it. Simple. If you were locking it up for 12 months, like maybe I could deal with that. But in my mind, a 10-year lockup period isn't worth a 12% return unless you were just like, it was like really, really rock solid. And I just feel like any private fund isn't going to meet enough of that criteria for me to be like, okay, that's my safe money that's just there in 10 years when I need it. So for me, 12% is not enough to lock up my money for 10 years. I would have to see just better returns overall. Because one of the things that we know in our lives is like, when opportunity's there, you've got to take it. And in my mind, that would probably feel more like an opportunity cost than it would feel like I'm missing out on, say, this CPA firm that I'm investing in now that I expect to do far better than the 12%. So,
all right.
No and none.
That
was easy.
I knew it would be worth asking that one. Okay. All right. Okay. We're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to move more into maybe the personal side of things. And the first one I'm going to ask is, you've received an unexpected $250,000 inheritance. What do you do with it?
Okay, well, this is actually my life. I experienced this exact thing. So my grandpa passed away about, I guess it was a year and a half, 2 years ago, something like that. It's been relatively recent. And that's about how much money I ended up getting. So my parents had both previously passed. So the money that my grandparents had went to the kids who were alive, and to my mom and dad's portion came to the 7 of us kids. So we got about that amount of money. Now, I'm going to kind of caveat this by saying, typically I would do something different than I'm doing today. So I'm going to use this almost as I'll tell you what I did today. There's a bunch of cash sitting in liquid money that I'm pouring into building this house. So a lot of it's there. Although I say that, and I still am actively investing, right? So I still put money in specific places. So it's not like all of that, but a lot of that 250,000 is probably still sitting in. Now, I'll say this, it's in a cash position that's getting a return. So it's not just sitting in a checking account doing absolutely nothing. So, but again, it's because I know that I'm putting a bunch of capital specifically into the house at this moment. Okay. So let's just say house is built. Christian's no longer dealing with that. Now I get the $250,000. What do I do with it? I'm definitely going to invest that. And I would probably, here's what I would do. I would take a really good broad look at the rest of my investment portfolio, right? and I would understand first of all, where I've done well, where I haven't done well, what I'm interested in. Those are the types of things I'd be asking questions about. And then I would try to fit that strategically into a plan, just like I would have gotten it if it was $250,000 of income, right? The benefit here in this case is I don't have to pay the taxes. So now what would I do? I should take a step back. We put money in high cash value life insurance, a lot of it, right? So first thing I would do is I would dump that money into the policy, but then I would be looking to invest it. And that would be the plan. So now what type of investment? Again, I like businesses. That's like my thing more than any other. I believe businesses have the biggest opportunity to boom. And given again, my risk profile and just kind of my attitude and ideas and philosophies around investing, for me in my situation, I like to kind of go bigger on things. And so businesses, that's my thing. I like invest. And I say that I still put money into like the deferred comp plan. I still have a lot of money in life insurance and a bunch of other things, but kind of businesses are like my go-to thing right now.
Okay, sweet. All right, next we're going to say a close family member asks you to co-sign a loan for their new business. What do you do?
Honestly, I'd probably do it. Now, am I saying that everybody should do it? Not necessarily. My situation is such that I could do it and probably be okay. Even if things didn't go that well, I would just be willing to eat it because I love my family. I want them to be successful. Like if it was like an abusive thing, like I have really great siblings. So when I think about this, I'm like, my family is all like very responsible. Like it's just, they would be doing it for the right reasons. And I would have a lot of faith and trust that they could actually deliver. Now, if I was dealing with a situation where, let's say that I had, that I'm talking about some siblings who just like could never hold a job and like, haven't shown the propensity to be responsible with money. In that situation, I would take a huge step back and probably not do it. Right. I try to come up with a better. And then the other thing that I might do if I was concerned, I'd probably just with our business experience, I'd probably just see how I could help them just with my own experience, make sure that they're making sure that the business is actually being successful. But I do think this, if you're going to do this for family members, you have to go in with one kind of clear attitude. And that is that if you give the money away, it's okay if it's gone. Right. So like even if you give it away with a loan, the idea that it's a loan, I would 100% go into that thinking, okay, this is what we're hoping to do. But if it's gone, that's not going to that's like not going to ruin my relationship. And if it would, then I don't think you should do it.
Yeah, I think that's smart. Would you ask for anything in return, equity or anything else in exchange for doing that?
Maybe like I could see doing something like that. And again, like I would say if it made sense, like I don't want to go and try to, if they already have everything and they're literally just needing the money side of it and it's a loan and I would probably just treat it like a regular loan and create a note for it. And we try to make it as methodical and kind of real as it possibly could be, just like you would at a bank. Yeah. So I think that's kind of would be my approach.
Okay, sweet. All right. This one is I'm excited to hear this one because it's perfect for Christian.
I'm scared. I'm nervous.
It might be a really easy answer for you, but I'm interested to hear it. So let's just say hypothetically speaking that you have a child who turns 18 years old.
Weird.
And is trying to decide. Yep, it is. And is trying to decide between going to college or starting a business. How do you guide them financially?
Yeah, that is a great question. And it actually is probably a lot more nuanced than you might think. So I am a proud college dropout, started in the business, and I focused, like I started when I was 21 years old, right into the financial services business. I made it a focus to like learn this business, and it's obviously gone really well for us. Right.
Yep.
But I also realized that not everybody's me. And so the starting point is, if they're trying to decide between the two, I think you want to talk about like what their goals and aspirations are for the future. If their aspiration is to be a business owner, that's the focus, then I'd probably say you can get a lot more experience, a lot more know-how, a lot more knowledge. That's probably the word I was looking for, and a lot faster by just doing it. And they happen to have a dad who's all about investing in my kids' businesses. So I would say like, if they wanted to do it, I would almost certainly encourage that, except that I want to make sure that they're doing it for them, not for me. So the reason I say that is because I
Yeah.
talk to my kids about this all the time. I'm always like, when Kate was like, 7 or 8, we're talking about when she was older, we'd build cupcakes. That's her cupcake shop, right?
Yeah.
She's not really into cupcakes anymore, so we've had to change business ideas. But basically, their entire life, we've been talking about business ideas that we could work on
Mhm.
together. So I would just want to make sure that they're doing it for them, not for me. And I would also just make sure that they understand what they're giving up. So I didn't have the typical college experience. I'm okay with that. But I know a lot of people, like, that was some of the years they really loved throughout their lives. It was really formative. There's a lot of growth. So I think for they just have to know, like, what are the pros and cons. And I'd probably do what I always do. I'd list out the pros and cons and figure out which I feel better about, and encourage them to go with whatever they feel best about. And from a money standpoint, my honest answer is that you're going to, unless they were going to get like a post secondary degree, then I
Mhm.
don't think that college is going to help someone, like, help them make significantly more money than they would otherwise. So that's kind of my take.
Oh, I like it. Very, very honest, very self-aware, right? Of your kind of influence as a dad, and not wanting that to overpower what they want. So I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Okay. This is fun,
Okay.
Rod. I'm loving it.
All right. Well, I'm learning. This is great. We've worked together for a long time, but I'm getting some cool insights. Okay, this is Christian insights. All right. So next I'm going to ask, and again, this might be just a softball, but we're going to
That's
ask
okay.
it. So let's say you have a chance to pay off a rental property in full, but doing so would tie up the majority of your liquidity. Do you pay it off or keep the leverage?
Meh. Keep the leverage. Yeah, that's an easy
Figured.
one. We're not paying now. I was going to say, hey, it depends on interest rates and things like that, but it doesn't
Sure.
depend on interest rates, because I actually my LinkedIn newsletter this week that came out just like yesterday or a couple days ago was about how cash is king and liquidity is so crucial to taking advantage of opportunities and to mitigating downside risk. So I don't lock up let me try that again. I don't lock up a significant amount of I always have a significant amount of liquidity, because that's like your safety net and it's your opportunity fund. So that's like a hard no, hard pass. Yeah, whatever. Yes, just don't do it. Liquidity is critical. I can't say it enough.
And what's funny is I actually even changed the wording of the question, because the question was, what if it ties up all of your liquidity? I'm like, well,
that's too easy.
for sure he would say no on that. Still,
yeah.
Still,
If
it
you
went the
said like
direction I thought it would.
20% of your liquidity, but here's the thing, the way that I think people should do this, I think that you should always have a defined amount of money that's liquid, right? Like
Yeah.
always. So what happens then is you've got your liquid money, and then you bring cash in from income, from investments, whatever. You grow your opportunity fund up, but you still only use up until that liquidity amount, because again, you can't have, what's the right word? You can't get too screwed up in the investment world if you maintain liquid capital, right? Think about any situation. Like, I've tried to do this over and over again. Any situation that you could come up against, liquidity, cash on hand is always the answer.
Okay. Sweet. All right. Now we're going to get into the most difficult, maybe not most difficult. It's more personal. Like, this is more, okay. So, and again, I'll start easy. I'll ease you into this category, but
okay.
So let's say that your child has built up $5,000, some significant amount for them, and they've learned, right? They've watched you. They've said, "Hey, I want to go invest this, Dad. What should I do? What kind of an alternative investment would you suggest or introduce them to with that?"
Yeah. Okay. So this one's tough, because obviously the alternative investment world doesn't take $5,000 very well. So in that situation, and I would say that I think the starting point would be like, I would sit them down and be like, okay, what kind of things are you interested in? Like, because what I would love for them to do is become more educated on the topic. And if they're interested in it, so if we bust this thing out and they say, well, here's the area and really the beauty of alternative investments is you can go anywhere. right? So you can kind of just say, well, what are you interested in? Let's say it's Canon. He's interested in gaming, right? I would say, okay, well, let's look at things that you're interested in doing, and then we'll try to come up with an investment that goes in line with that. Again, the reason, not because I think you always have to invest in things that are interesting to you. It's more that in a kid situation, I want them to become educated, and it's a lot easier to become educated if they're genuinely intrigued by the concepts that they're reading about. So I think the starting point is that. And then once you've kind of figured that out, you can maybe have a little conversation. Well, okay, so here was the thought that was going through my mind when you first thought, because you said alternative investments, and I mentioned that having only $5,000 is hard. I would probably do like some sort of an equity. So let's say they wanted to do real estate. I would say, okay, are you interested in being involved in doing some of the real estate actions? Because then we can determine whether, me and Cannon or me and Kate just take 50 grand and put it in an actual real estate deal. Like we actually go find the property. We do all of go through the whole process, and they own 10% as an example, if they're putting in $5,000. That would be a way to do it. But again, they'd have to be interested in that kind of space. And then the other place that I might look is just individual stocks. I still invest in individual stocks, and it's done pretty well for me over the last several years. And that's another just simple way. So again, if they're like, hey, I don't really want to be like hands-on doing it, but I want to learn about it and kind of understand the company behind it, then I might go that direction. But I'm leaving it up to them, first of all, just kind of guiding them in the direction that makes the most sense. And really, I think my goal would be to provide the best opportunity for them to learn and grow. I wouldn't be so worried about the actual money.
Cool. Okay.
Even though you want the money to grow, right? You want it to be a win, but to me, that's like less important than the lessons learned that kind of help you learn and grow and develop.
Yeah, and I think I liked what you said about, at least as a starting point, really finding something they can get excited about, because then all of that learning, I don't know, means more or comes easier to them, or they spend more time on, or whatever. Like, and they're just the way they think about it over the next period of time. So I like it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's go to something a little more maybe sensitive. So let's say, so you're working to build a solid alternative investment portfolio, right? This is a fact, right?
Yeah.
But let's say you and your spouse, so you and Heather, differ in your risk tolerance. How do you work through aligning your financial goals and methods for getting there?
Yeah, that's interesting. So the good news is that we don't really differ. Like she's pretty much on board with what I do, because our situation is a little different. Think about this though, Rod. So this is my second marriage. We got married when I was 35 years old. I was already like established. We already had like a pretty thriving business. And so she wasn't really coming in and saying like, hey, you should change things up. Right. So she's kind of like, I'm on board. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that that's always going to be the case for people. So I think let's just say it's a different subject. I always believe in trying to be like sensitive toward any issue, right? So usually I would defer and try to come up with some sort of balancing situation where maybe we're even saying like, okay, let's do a portion that's more focused on your goals and objectives and a portion that's more focused on mine. We don't even have to do it as a compare and contrast, because it's not about whose return is getting it, because it really is about comfort. Like if it's genuinely keeping your spouse from being comfortable, like they're laying in bed at night worried about money because you're just choosing to be a little more aggressive than them, like, to me, that's just not worth it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's kind of my take.
I like it. Cool. Okay. We're going to keep on that vein, and we're going to say, let's say that your aging in-laws, they're not aging yet, but let's just say when they get to that point, your aging in-laws need financial help, but it could impact your own investment goals. How do you handle that situation?
Me personally, I probably just do it. Like, I mean, I guess it depends on how much it impacts your my financial situation. If you're saying like my like quality of life and standard of living is greatly diminished because I'm like, I probably wouldn't go that far, but I would be willing to go as far as I am reasonably able to without, like I'm not going to disinherit my kids, and I'm not like, those aren't the things that I'm talking. So it's probably like, This is just such a hard question, Rod. I don't even know what to say. I think the answer is that I would try to do it because you care about your family, you care about those people. And yet I don't think I would do it at the expense of kind of the bigger picture, trying, again, disinheriting your wife and kids and,
Mhm.
potentially creating problems for your own retirement. Those things have to be rock solid. You can't help people if those things aren't solid. So I would make sure that foundational stuff was really solid for me first. And then above and beyond that, I'd probably be willing to help out as much as I can.
Yeah, I think that's super helpful. And I know these are a little more sensitive. They kind of dig a little bit in places that people might feel as uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And yeah, these are the exact kind of things that people are dealing
Every
with
day,
like right
man.
now.
Every day. These
Yep.
are great questions. Did you
Yeah.
come up with these on your own, Rod?
I mean,
God,
I may
you had
have
a
had
little support?
Jarvis's
Okay.
near relative help me. So
Okay. Well, it's smart of you, but these are good questions.
yeah,
You're
thanks.
catching me with some doozies.
Okay. Let's see. So we'll do two more.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, so let's say you're planning your estate and you want to pass wealth to your kids, but a lot of people are worried about spoiling their kids. What are your thoughts, and how do you envision structuring your inheritance for them?
This has been a narrative for that I've heard from the time that I came in the
Yep.
business, like these families and there probably are those, but that doesn't really cross my mind as like a really big deal. So I think, and maybe it's just because I know what I know. So going back to the original question, I would just structure the estate in a way that they can't spend it all, right? Like the
Okay.
nice thing is you can very clearly articulate through your trusts exactly how you want money spent. Now, I'm not suggesting that I think it's like, you're going to be a micromanager when you're dead, right? Nobody wants
Mhm.
that. But
Yeah.
but we also don't want to let our children potentially make a bunch of bad decisions that put them in jeopardy. So in my situation, I am without question going to make sure that the money that I pass on will last for them by articulating in the trust how and when that money can be spent in a way that gives them like freedom and flexibility still, but not so much freedom and flexibility that they could just blow it. And
Yeah.
I say blow it like, maybe it's like you get conned by. This is crazy, Rod. This is crazy. I have to tell you a quick story.
Okay.
So I was going to say maybe you get conned by like somebody that you think is going to be like a great life partner, and it turns out they just want your money. Okay, get this. I know two people who got conned in that way by the same person.
No,
Yeah.
really.
Yep. So I'm not going to say
Wow.
who because we might know some of these people. I'll tell you offline. But two people conned by the same. So like that sounds like an absolutely crazy thing, but
Hmm.
that kind of stuff actually does happen. So again, all of that can be avoided by just articulating how you like what the money is actually being used for. And then you want to make sure that you have like, an executor that's taking care of things at least before they're of certain age. And you can determine at different ages, give different. So like, it's just really easy with a little bit of planning to make sure that that doesn't happen. And that's kind of my take.
Cool. Okay, I like it. Now I'm going to ask the question that everyone was thinking a few minutes ago, and you may have already answered it. So if so, then just
That's
tell
all
me
right.
about it. So the question is, why haven't you been and aren't you worried about that potential outcome, spoiling your kids with the inheritance?
Spoiling kids with inheritance. Maybe it's because I just like my kids a lot. They're, they don't get in trouble. They're like good kids that. So I think that there's probably an element of I'm just like proud that I can spoil them a little bit. But one thing I've just always done is I've tried to focus on work in conjunction with the things that they like and love. So one of the
Mhm.
things that I've noticed, I'll give you an example. My daughter Kate, she's the one that's almost turning 18. She has an incredible work ethic in the things that she enjoys and is interested in. So she spends like a ridiculous amount of time doing things related to acting, singing, dancing,
Mhm.
right? Because that's just like
And it
what she
shows.
loves. And and it shows. Yeah, she's done
Yeah.
a lot of work to become really good at that. But like in my mind, I think because of like that overall philosophy of like, I believe that my kids know that they can both like enjoy life and work hard and thrive. And so I think the philosophy, the ideas that I've tried to put in them is like, go build things, like
Yeah.
if you're about those things and not just build, but like go improve, like go do
Yeah.
things. You feel better when you accomplish stuff. So I think maybe if my kids were just like a big pain in the butt right now, I might be like, I'd have a different answer. But at least as of right now, I've never felt that way. And again, maybe the other reason I have never felt that way is because I also know I'm going to structure it in a way that they can't blow it anyway. So it's almost like a mute point. That
part of it. Okay. I figured that would come into play. But again, because that's what you were describing is people should do. And so they're not worried about that. So, okay.
And I've done that, by the way. I just did that. Heather and I, because again, it's our second marriage. This was like 3 years ago. We took care of all this fun estate planning. It's painful, by the way. It's like it's not fun to do, but man, can I just tell you, it does feel really good when you're done to feel like, okay, I've got things in order, right? It feels like it helps me sleep better at night for sure.
Yep. Cool. Okay. One more.
Okay, one more.
This one I'm interested in. Okay. So no matter how much you do, and then again, this may not, it's probably not your kids, but let's just say it was. Okay.
Yeah.
No matter how much you do, it seems like your kids always want more stuff, more vacations, other ways to spend your money. How do you explain your financial choices to them?
I'd say money doesn't grow on trees. Because that's what that's it. That's it, Rod. I would just say, and I try to help them understand money came from work. Now, this is interesting because I do think there's some of this. Like I think anytime I shouldn't say that. In my life, there is at least a little of this, just being totally honest. Now, I say that my kids are like really like grateful. They're not like spoiled in the sense, but there's also still, because of the life that they've lived, there's sometimes like even like unconscious expectations, right? That things are just going to be a certain way because that's what they've experienced. That's what they've seen and done. And I do think one of the things I've really tried to do on that is just make sure that I'm reminding people like where we are and how we got here. And okay, so I've really got a great story. I'm going to pat myself on the back, but I'm really patting Kate on the back. So on Thanksgiving, we had Thanksgiving at my house here, and we went around the room and said, just something we were thankful for. Yeah. And Kate made it into this really cool program it's called the Open Jar Institute. And it's like this acting thing that they go around the country and they like hand select people that are just graduating high school to go be part of this, right? So she got selected to be part of it. And it's still like not cheap to do, right? Like just because you get selected doesn't mean you go, because it still costs something. And but she's in a fortunate situation where she can do it. I was just like, I couldn't have been more like proud as a dad when I had this moment where we were going around the room on Thanksgiving, and Kate she said something about just how she's really thankful she was thankful for me in this. It was really sweet of her. But she also mentioned like where I wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things that I get to do if it wasn't for my dad doing these other things. And so like, I think it's just trying to give perspective, help them understand like that. Money doesn't grow on a tree. It takes work and effort. And so we should treat it that way. And to be honest with you, I feel the same way in the business. Like this is the same attitude that I always worry about in our business. Our guys, they get on calls. They're just like teed up with really great people, but that's not how our business usually works. Right. And so it's one of those things where you just have to help people know that like you have a unique and special situation. And as long as people realize it and appreciate it, then I think you're in a good place. But when it becomes like just an expectation, whether it's your kids, whether it's employees, that's when it becomes problematic. So I think it's just the constant messaging. And then of course, you don't want to act the way that you are hoping that they're not going to act. Right. So if you're acting like the entitled person who then that's certainly, or that's likely to carry down to your kids, especially.
Yeah. That's a great,
that was a lot,
man. I think we packed a lot into this episode, and I think it was fun. Kind of flip the roles, get the deep philosophical content coming from your side.
Yeah,
it's been great.
I've had fun, man. Awesome. Thanks for taking I was going to say the host. You're always a host, but you're taking like the lead host. We'll call it the lead host role.
Yeah.
So this has been fun. Maybe
awesome.
We'll do it more often.
Sweet. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Money Insights podcast. To learn more about the financial and business strategies discussed in this show, please visit moneyinsights.net. The views and opinions expressed on the Money Insights podcast are not intended to be individual financial, tax, or legal advice. always consult with the appropriate advisor before making financial decisions. And if you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This will help others find the show and learn wealth building strategies for themselves. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.